the mountains in a little place called Montserrat. And so the history of this is that it's where the Black Madonna is said to have been found. It is really high up and really cold. I am trying to get some, I guess, more landscapey type street photos, which is a little different because I've never really shoot landscapes, but it's quite fun. So here is what I've found so far. We've now seen the Black Madonna in Montserrat, and we are now climbing up through the mountains trying to find this cross. Literally everywhere I'm turning, it is absolutely beautiful, and the weather today is actually pretty gross. It's, well, you can see it's not particularly nice, but just look how interesting all of this is, and how there's so many lines from roads, from buildings, from railings, from little stairs. Literally everywhere there's lines that you can use to pull your eye towards something, or to pull the viewer's eye towards something. It's something that I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to use these rock formations, or the valleys between them, to try pull your eye through and out into the distance. That's the plan. Let's see if these work. Yeah, I think that this 40-minute walk is going to turn into maybe like 2 hours, but it'll be worth it. Please excuse my panting, just going up a very steep hill. But something I've been thinking about is if you're trying to use lines to draw the viewer's eye through the frame to something, in this case the distance, it's so important to try and limit the amount of times where something intersects with that line. Because I think that as soon as you start making your lines not as clean, it then becomes harder for the eye to naturally follow them. And when it's harder for the eye to naturally follow the lines in your image, they then lose their visual weighting that you need to pull the eye through the frame. And so something that I really like to do is try and get the cleanest lines possible. And if that means that my framing isn't quite perfect, I shoot two. I shoot one with the lines slightly intersected and one where it's slightly cleaner. And I typically find that the cleaner lines are just better, because then your eye is just naturally following through the image and it's just more interesting, I guess. And it also means that you start to be more experimentative with different compositions, and you're not just purely relying on the golden ratio or the rules of thirds. Fuji gang, as much as I love street photography, this is so beautiful and peaceful, and I want to do more of it. Like, I haven't really ever explored many landscapes with me and my camera, and this is something that I really want to do. So if there's anywhere that you recommend in Europe, let me know, because I am gonna spend some money and go to some cool places. I'm obviously gonna shoot street, do not worry, those videos are not stopping, but yeah, trying to incorporate some more of this beauty in some of my photography, to develop as a photographer, to learn how to capture the feelings you get when in different environments, because that is the skill of photography. So on that note, let's get back to shooting. Taking a photo. I like to, and I'm sure many of you do as well, we like to clean up the frame. We like to remove as many unwanted things from the frame as possible to make it as clear as we can what the subject is. If there's a tree in the way, it's often blocking the subject, so we move to the side to clean up our images. However, we can play around with the visual weighting of the image by reintroducing elements deliberately into areas where we feel like there's maybe not enough there. And maybe for us to use these leading lines that we want to use, we then need to add another element that has low visual weighting to help balance the frame. Let's take these two images for example. They've got very similar contents. They've got this bush here, they've got this cross here, they've got this lovely path here, and they've got this grey sky up here. However, in my eyes, this image over here, image B, is significantly better. And that's because the visual weighting in this image is a lot more cohesive and our subject is a lot clearer. And there are two main things at play here. We've got contrast, and we've got scale. So let's dive into this a bit more. In these images, the cross is the subject. We want the viewer to look at the cross. And so we want to do everything in our power to draw the eye through the frame to the cross. And so firstly, the cross in B is bigger than the cross in A. And typically, things that are filling the frame more, they are larger in the image, or what would be our environment, are more important to us as an animal. Because if you're going to get eaten by something, you're going to get eaten by something that's closer than something further away. So we care about things that are closer to us. And so things that have a larger scale are more attractive or attract the eye more than smaller things in the frame. And as well as that, in image B, the cross here has higher contrast than the cross here. And the reason for that is that if you look, in B, the cross is against the sky, and the sky is brighter. So we get this bright sky against this dark cross. However, in image A, we've got this dark cross against a dark grey background. And therefore, there is less contrast between the darkest darks and the brightest brights. Therefore, our eye is more drawn to the cross in A than the cross in B. Typically, dark things, like this bush over here, hold more visual weighting. Not entirely sure on the biology, but it is what it is. And so, where the bush is placed in frame A, it takes up a large proportion of the image. And it's very dark down here, and then it's very bright here. So there's a lot of contrast between the two. However, in B, it's a bit more fragmented and it's off to the side. And this actually pushes the eye into the frame. And instead of the eye kind of escaping down this little gap up here, now there's a clear edge in B. So the eye is pushed inwards, whereas the eye here can get lost and disappear into the distance. One thing I do potentially prefer in image A is this leading line, because it's a lot more diagonal and it comes through the frame and then up. Whereas in B, it's kind of a bit short, a bit stumpy. And although I prefer the leading line in A, I'm not going to lie, I think that it's a worthy trade-off to have this short little stumpy leading line, to have the bush pushed off, to be lower down in the frame or to be more on level with the cross, which then pushes the cross up into the sky, which makes the cross stand out against the horizon. And by taking a few steps further down the path, we've also been able to push these two bushes that weren't really doing much to become frames of this cross. It now feels like our eye is being guided along with this path down to the cross. And just as a little side note, I think that the cross is a very strong subject in this frame because everything else is very specular, very sort of rough, and there's no like clean lines or edges anywhere. However, the cross is very straight. Everything is perpendicular, everything is perfect, unlike my handwriting. But this has allowed us to create that contrast in shape, which is another way in which our eye is being pulled through the frame. So perhaps I need to do another video on visual weighting, because I think it is the most important thing in creating an image that feels balanced and feels nice to look at. So if that's something you want to see, then